Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 139, Foul Weather Friends. The episode begins with Ash and the gang walking down a path toward Azalea Town when they notice many grass Pokemon, including Bellsprout and Gloom, and one that they've never seen before, although Brock recognizes as a Hoppip due to its pink coloring. And also the fact that it was hopping along the path. Haha, get it? Anyways, Ash looks to his Pokedex for more information, and it tells him that Hoppip was as light as a feather and could be lifted by the most gentle of breezes. Misty thinks it's cute, so she goes up to hug it. However, the Hoppip is then dragged away by the gentle breeze, just as the Pokedex said. Ash and the gang run after it, but before they can do anything, it's soon scooped up by a girl in her net. By the time Ash and the gang arrive, a second Hoppip has already arrived right next to her, signifying that they liked her for some reason. Before Ash and Misty could question why this was, Brock cuts them off as he introduces himself to the girl, obviously having a crush on her as usual. However, Misty drags him away before he can say anything. Ash and the gang then learn from the woman that her name was Mariah, and the reason why the Hoppip liked her so much was because she owned them, clarifying that she also owned 6 others. Mariah then leads Ash and the gang to her house so she can explain what she used the Hoppip for. She doesn't really have to explain that much though, as soon as Ash and the gang arrive at her house, they spot several weather-related instruments on her roof and come to the conclusion that she was a weather forecaster. As she leads the group inside the house, she confirms this, stating that she used the Hoppip to predict the weather, and believes that the relationship between Hoppip and the weather could be more than just the obvious, which was the wind speeds. Also admitting that the job of being a Hoppip trainer was hard since they would constantly float away in the wind, so she had to constantly pick them up, but she said she didn't mind, as long as she got some good-ass research. In disbelief that a mere Pokemon could predict the weather, Mariah decides to show an example, as she takes Ash and the gang out to a field in her backyard, where all of her Hoppip were. Soon enough, a breeze arrives and sends 2 of the Hoppip into the air, and they're eventually caught by the fence in her backyard, which she had built so that they didn't escape, obviously. She then explains that since only 2 of the Hoppip were blown away, the wind was only a 2 on the Hoppip scale. But here's a question here. How does this work? Because I'm sure she's not the only Hoppip trainer in the entire world, and there's other people who use Hoppip to study the wind as well. So, what if they had more Hoppip than she did? So, okay, she has 8 Hoppip. What if someone else had 20 Hoppip? So therefore, if only 2 of their Hoppip went away, then it'd be a 2 out of 20. But for hers, it'd be a 2 out of 8, which makes it seem like a lot better odds. So how does it work? I don't know. Ash and the gang question how the Hoppip could be used to make long-range predictions, as, Mariah didn't really predict anything. She just waited for the wind to already appear, and then she was like, oh, only 2 of them blew away, so 2 out of 8. And Mariah reveals that she hasn't gotten that far in her research yet, but she hoped to get there. Okay, she just seems like a fraud at this point. Ash and Misty were kind of starting to notice this, but Brock, on the other hand, was still just excusing any of her statements whatsoever since he had a crush on her, and Misty dragged him away yet again because of this. Just then, another breeze occurs, and this time, it was strong enough to lift every single Hoppip into the air, with the exception of 1. This one Hoppip felt left out, so it proceeded to jump on a rock and hoped to use it as momentum to launch itself into the air, but it only fell off the rock as a result. Misty finds it odd that this Hoppip couldn't fly, even with the added boost from the rock, so she decides to give it a hand and clean it up with a cloth, as when it landed on the ground, its face became pretty dirty. However, it revealed that its face was already dirty from the beginning, as it had paint on it, which washed off when Misty put the cloth on it. With the paint washed off, this Hoppip was actually revealed to be an Oddish, which had disguised itself as one. Mariah revealed that Oddish's reasoning for disguising itself was because it really wanted to fly like the Hoppip could, so it wanted to pretend like it was one and try to achieve flight. Also explaining how fucking determined it was, as it had practiced with the Hoppip for years at this point, despite failing at every attempt. Just simply unable to accept its true identity as a random Oddish from the neighborhood, and not a Hoppip. Further proving how determined the Oddish was, it was trying to climb the enclosed fence while Ash and the gang were talking, in an attempt to fly, and it simply fell yet again. At least this time, though, it fell onto a pile of hay, as opposed to the hard ground. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was spying on Ash and the gang, and wanted to steal the Oddish, with Jessie and James obviously wanting to give them to Giovanni, but Meowth, on the other hand, wanting to use the Hoppip for a delivery service. But James is against this idea, as he counters that the Hoppip wouldn't be able to deliver across the air if the wind wasn't strong enough. Meowth is still adamant on this idea, though, even as James and Jessie completely dismiss him and go with the idea of capturing the Hoppip to give to Giovanni. Because, they hate new ideas. Back with Ash and the gang, who were awaiting another wind gust to see how many Hoppip would get picked up, and Misty was trying to comfort the sad Oddish, who just couldn't get it up. Pun intended. Team Rocket then showed up in masks, not even full-on disguises this time, as they tried to blow the Hoppip away into their balloon with paper fans, but the fans weren't creating strong enough gusts. So, Team Rocket quickly threw off their disguises and revealed themselves as they did their motto, stating their plan, and Meowth brought out a huge electric fan in order to create stronger gusts. Although the Hoppip do become airborne this time, they're quickly caught by both Mariah and Oddish, Mariah with her net, and Oddish with the leaves on the top of its head. So that's why Oddish was allowed to stay around so long too. It probably helped with catching the Hoppip. Not wanting Team Rocket to try and swoop in and claim them, Ash sent out his Chikorita to battle Team Rocket, with Jessie sending out her Arbok to counter it. However, Chikorita was able to get off the first attack, as Chikorita tackled the Arbok. Chikorita then followed up with a Razor Leaf, sending Arbok crashing down on Jessie and James, knocking it out in the process. With Arbok ultimately useless at claiming the Hoppip, Meowth tried a different strategy, upping the wind gusts on the electric fan even more, boasting that they were now hurricane level. But Ash and the gang must have been pretty strong then, as they were able to hold the Hoppip in their arms long enough for Pikachu to use Thunderbolt and send Team Rocket blasting off, exploding the fan in the process. Yay! Due to Pikachu being the one who ultimately saved the day, Ash congratulates it first, before Chikorita, still obviously planning to congratulate Chikorita. I mean, he learned his lesson from last time, but the Chikorita still gets mad at not being congratulated first and butts Pikachu out of the way to get Ash's full attention. God damn it, Chikorita. When Misty saw Ash congratulating his Pokemon, he didn't want Oddish to feel left out, as it was usually Oddish's job to protect the Hoppip. So she congratulated it, making the Oddish very happy. Just then, all of the Hoppip then huddled together in fear. Mariah informed them that this likely meant that a storm was coming, as all of the Hoppip could sense it through the winds. So does this mean she could do long-range predictions after all? Well, not really, because as soon as she went to her computer to check the data on if there was a storm approaching, she immediately found that the storm was already arriving. So definitely not super long-range, maybe like a couple seconds in advance. The Hoppip were also only able to predict strong winds, not a literal tornado, and Mariah confirmed that that's what was on the way. This was no measly storm. When the tornado arrived, it struck Team Rocket, who was walking down a path first, as they got swept in. As for Ash and the gang, they didn't have much time until the tornado wreaked havoc over Mariah's house as well, so they proceeded to board up all the windows as fast as they could and hide under Mariah's desk, also with all the Hoppip and Oddish, because, they obviously couldn't be outside during this weather. Unfortunately, despite the precautions everyone took, the roof of the house was still blown off, sending all the Hoppip scattering, along with Oddish. Misty and Maria almost got sucked up by the tornado as well, due to trying to reach the Hoppip and Oddish, but they were unsuccessful, with Hoppip, Oddish, and Mariah's desk for that matter, disappearing to parts unknown. When the storm passed and the damage was done, Ash and the gang offered to help a desperate Mariah recover her lost Hoppip and the Oddish. So they went out to search the wreckage, where they found the displaced roof and Oddish underneath it. Thankfully, the Oddish wasn't crushed, only slightly injured, and these injuries obviously didn't bother it, as it immediately got up when the roof was lifted off of it, determined to find the Hoppip, as that was its job. Ash, Brock, and Misty are amazed at the Oddish's determination, despite almost just dying, and Mariah confirms that the Oddish had always been like this, which was why she permitted it to stay with them for so long, adding that it had once saved a Hoppip during a fierce storm, just like the one that they had experienced, minus the tornado part, obviously. So really, was it like the storm at all? Anyways, though, if the Oddish was truly able to find a Hoppip in the middle of the storm, then there was no doubt that it could find the Hoppip after a storm had passed, and sure enough, it did, as it led Ash and the gang to a Hoppip that was stuck in a tree. Brock offers to climb up and go get it, wanting to impress Mariah, and he does so, which does impress her. Yay, good job, Brock, you actually did something good. A second Hoppip is then found caught in a branch in the middle of the river, signifying that it too may have originally been in a tree before the tree was knocked down. And Brock offers to save this Hoppip as well, but Oddish tries to jump in first, believing it should be responsible, but Ash stops it in fear of losing the Oddish as well, because if they lost the Oddish, not only would that just be bad on its own, but they would also be unable to find the rest of the Hoppip. So, with Oddish held back, Brock jumps into the water and saves the Hoppip. Oddish then locates a third Hoppip, but this one wasn't stuck anywhere. Instead, it was simply floating in the air, and it was getting away fast. So, Ash and the gang run after it to try and alert it that they were there, Because if the Hoppip knew it was there, then it obviously wouldn't run away. Meanwhile, the other 4 Hoppip were in the air as well, but they weren't floating freely. They had been captured by Team Rocket. Well, also not really that either, because the Hoppip had more just landed inside of Team Rocket's balloon because of the strong wind gusts during the tornado. But, come on, that makes no fucking sense. How was their balloon not destroyed by the tornado? It gets destroyed by a fucking leaf. I'm not gonna ask any questions. Maybe the balloon was able to resist strong winds or something. I'm sure the writers would come up with some bullshit excuse. Anyways, due to Team Rocket now having some Hoppip in their possession, Meowth was still adamant on his delivery service idea, while Jessie, on the other hand, had changed her idea from giving them to Giovanni, instead suggesting that they attach pinwheels to the Hoppip. All of their suggestions were interrupted, though, as they then spotted the Hoppip that Ash and the gang had spotted, and proceeded to catch it in a net and bring it in with all the other Hoppip that they now had. Ash and the gang, who had managed to catch up to the Hoppip, saw it get captured, leading Misty to get angry at Team Rocket and send out her Staryu to use Tackle, popping the balloon and sending it crashing down into the forest, knocking out all of the Hoppip that they had in the process. Ash, Brock, Misty, and Mariah then arrived to confront Team Rocket, having saw where their balloon crashed, in an attempt to reclaim the Hoppip. In order to stop Ash and the gang from coming any closer, James sent out his Victory Bell. However, as usual, Victory Bell simply ate him instead. Thankfully, though, Victory Bell eventually let him go, meaning he was able to battle by the time Ash sent out his Heracross and Jessie sent out her Arbok, along with Misty sending out her already released Staryu. As if a 4-Pokemon battle wasn't crazy enough, Oddish then insisted that it wanted to battle as well, feeling responsible for saving the Hoppip. Jessie and James foolishly laughed at the thought that a measly Oddish could take out their Pokemon, as James simply commanded his Victory Bell to use Tackle on it, but this Tackle was stopped, as Oddish unleashed a mighty kick on the Victory Bell. Ash and Brock were caught off guard by Oddish's strength, but Misty stated that the strength of the kick was likely due to the Oddish hopping around all the time, attempting to go into the air, so therefore, its legs were super strong. Oddish then uses a Stun Spore to freeze the Victory Bell, and then do another one of its strong kicks, knocking Victory Bell out. With Victory Bell down, Jessie commanded her Arbok to use a Tackle followed by a Bite, but both of these attacks were stopped as Oddish used Sleep Powder, putting Arbok to sleep. Meowth, still desperate to achieve his dream of running a Hoppip delivery service, then goes to scratch at the Oddish, but Oddish counters with a huge-ass Solar Beam attack, which sends Team Rocket blasting off, much to Oddish's happiness. It had successfully saved the Hoppip. As a reward, Mariah officially proclaims Oddish as an honorary Hoppip, much to Oddish's delight, and Ash and the gangs as they cheer him on. However, Brock notes that Oddish didn't need to be seen as a Hoppip to be seen as special, adding that each Pokemon was good for their own things. The Hoppip may have been good at determining wind speeds and shit, but the Oddish was good at finding them, and that's what mattered. Ash and the gang then spend the rest of the day helping Mariah repair her house. Damn, they really worked fast then if they could rebuild basically the entire thing. And right as Ash and the gang are about to leave, Brock then offers to stay with Mariah and help her with her research, even though he obviously just wanted to stay close to a woman that he liked. He clearly didn't know jack shit about wind research. Misty knew this and drags him away in annoyance, much to his dismay and causing Mariah to laugh. Damn, Brock. The episode then ends with Ash and the gang saying goodbye to Mariah as they continue on their journey.